What if I told you that behind the dazzling sparkle of diamonds and silk ball gowns of the Gilded Age lay a shameful secret that everyone knew, but no one dared to speak aloud? In this world of high collars and impeccable manners, respectable marriages were often just a facade behind which dramas of betrayal and loneliness played out. While wealthy industrialists and aristocrats built empires, their wives learned the art of not noticing the obvious, maintaining their dignity in a gilded cage. It was an era of double standards, where a man's status was measured not only by his bank account, but also by his ability to maintain a secret life in the shadows of his family mansion. We invite you to peek behind the closed doors of Victorian living rooms to see the true price of social success. Watch the video to the end to find out how servants became the main keepers of family secrets and why the silence of a lawful spouse was worth more than any jewels. To begin with, I will reveal the most closely guarded secret that will make you look at the history of that time in a new light. At the end of the 19th century, reputation was the only currency that mattered to a respectable family, and protecting it required enormous effort. Wealthy men of the Victorian era and the American Gilded Age lived by an unwritten code. They could have any weaknesses as long as they did not become public knowledge. A mistress in those days was not just a woman for pleasure. She was part of the social landscape, hidden behind a facade of virtue. Wives from high society understood that their marriage was primarily an economic union and a social contract. Losing status due to a public scandal meant social death not only for the husband, but for the whole family. Therefore, the unspoken rule was, do what you want, but don't make your wife look foolish in front of the neighbors. Men created a whole parallel reality for their secret affections, which never intersected with family dinners. Separate apartments were rented for mistresses in decent but not too conspicuous areas, or even small country houses were bought. These women were often talented actresses, singers, or educated ladies who found themselves in difficult financial situations. Their lives were filled with luxury, but deprived of legal recognition and a future. The man provided them with everything they needed, from carriages to silk stockings in exchange for a lighthearted atmosphere that was so lacking in the stuffy family nest. In these secret havens, gentlemen could take off their rigid corsets of social expectations and be themselves. However, this freedom was illusory, as every step such couples took was watched by thousands of curious eyes of townspeople. The social norms of the time dictated that a woman should be an angel in the home, the guardian of morality and purity. This created a paradoxical situation. Men sought in their mistresses what was considered unacceptable for their decent wives. Wives were raised strictly, their main task being to bear children and manage the household staff. Passion and emotional intimacy were often considered vulgar and inappropriate within the sacred union. This resulted in a vacuum that was filled by professional mistresses or women of the demi-monde. This system allowed the institution of marriage to remain unshakable, while satisfying the needs of men outside the home. Society turned a blind eye to this as long as the rules of propriety were observed. We would be very interested to hear your opinion on this matter. What do you think about such rules of the game, where honesty was sacrificed for the sake of reputation? Share your opinion in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new stories about the secrets of the past. Want to know a secret that has been passed down from generation to generation in servant families for centuries? Life in a large Gilded Age mansion was arranged in such a way that the owners were almost never completely alone. The servants were silent witnesses to every gesture, every suspicious letter, and every late return home. Butlers, maids, and coachmen knew much more about their master's movements than his lawful wife. It was the loyalty of the staff that determined whether a secret affair would remain a secret or become the subject of gossip throughout the neighborhood. A good servant in that era was valued not only for his ability to polish silver, but also for his absolute deafness to other people's secrets. Silence was often rewarded with generous tips, old clothes from the master's wardrobe, or simply a stable job. Coachmen played a key role in organizing secret meetings, delivering gentlemen to addresses that were not listed on official visiting cards. They saw their masters get out of carriages at inconspicuous entrances, wrapping themselves tightly in cloaks so as not to be recognized. Often, the coachman was entrusted with delivering anonymous notes or bouquets of flowers without indicating the sender. The servants in the mistress's house were also part of this unspoken circle of conspirators, receiving their keep from the same pocket as the legitimate family. There was a system of communication and information exchange between the staff of different houses. However, the professional ethics of the time dictated that they keep their mouths shut because dismissal with a bad reference meant poverty. Servants understood that their well-being was directly linked to preserving the honor of their master's house. Maids who were wives often found themselves in the most difficult position, seeing their mistress suffer because of her husband's infidelity. They would find receipts from jewelry stores in the pockets of frock coats for jewelry that their mistress never wore. Or they would smell a foreign perfume when cleaning their master's evening suit after his supposedly business dinner. In such cases, the maid became a confidant, silently empathizing or helping to hide the traces of her husband's disgrace. Sometimes wives even used their servants to secretly watch their husbands in order to know the extent of the problem. This entire vast mechanism of servants worked to maintain the appearance of perfect order. In the next chapter, you will learn how wives managed to save face when their world was falling apart before their eyes. Do you think the servants' loyalty was sincere, or was it just a matter of money? You definitely didn't read about this unique aspect of women's lives in your school history textbooks. For women of the age of splendor, divorce was not just a legal procedure, but social suicide and the loss of all rights. The laws of the time almost always favored the husband, leaving the wife without means, without a home, and, worst of all, without children. Society instantly turned its back on a divorced woman, closing the doors of all respectable homes to her. Therefore, most betrayed wives chose the path of stoic silence and outward calm. They built a wall of icy dignity around themselves, pretending that their marriage was perfect. It was a daily game of pretense that required nerves of steel and tremendous self-control. Wives knew but kept silent, not because of naivety or lack of feelings, but out of cold calculation for survival. They understood that a scandal would destroy not only their lives, but also their daughters' chances of a successful marriage. In exchange for their silence, such women often received compensation from their husbands in the form of unlimited credit from dressmakers or new estates. Feeling guilty or simply wanting peace and quiet, the man became more generous with gifts and more indulgent of his wife's whims. A kind of armed neutrality developed, with each playing their part in this theater of shadows. In public, they remained the perfect couple, exchanging pleasantries at charity balls. At home, however, their paths might not cross for weeks, despite living under the same roof. Loneliness in a huge, richly decorated house became a constant companion for such a woman. She could spend hours in her boudoir, surrounded by luxury but deprived of basic human warmth. Wives poured out their emotions in endless visits, charity work, or raising children. Some found solace in religion or art, trying to fill the inner void. Public opinion supported this silence, considering it a sign of high breeding and true nobility. A woman who made a public scene because of her husband's infidelity was condemned more than the adulterer himself. This cruel reality shaped the character of an entire generation of women who knew how to hide their tears behind pearl necklaces. Thank you for watching until now. Click like if this topic makes you think about the power of female endurance. What if everything you were taught about the romance of that era was just the tip of the iceberg? In the world of the Gilded Age, gifts were not just a sign of attention, but a language in which secret negotiations were conducted and debts of conscience were paid. Jewelers on Fifth Avenue or Bond Street often kept two sets of books, delivering necklaces to two different addresses. Wealthy men used luxurious jewelry as a way to atone for their sins against their wives or to ensure the fidelity of their mistresses. A wife who received a massive emerald set after another prolonged meeting of her husband understood its true meaning perfectly well. These stones were a kind of payment for her husband's right to a double life without unnecessary questions. Each new ring became another brick in the wall separating the spouses. Mistresses received gifts that were often more exquisite and less formal than official family heirlooms. These could be gold bracelets with secret locks, miniature watches, or brooches with hidden meanings. The man sought to emphasize the status of his unofficial companion, setting her apart from other women of the demi-monde. However, these jewels were the only insurance capital such a woman had in case of the death of her patron or the breakdown of the relationship. Without a legal right to inheritance, mistresses hoarded stones and gold for a rainy day. They knew that the sparkle of diamonds could be eternal, unlike men's interest in them. It was a race for security in a world where they had no legal guarantees. For wives, these gifts often served as a reminder of their dependence and lack of freedom in a gilded cage. Each offering from an unfaithful husband was perceived as another attempt to buy their peace and loyalty. Wearing such jewelry at balls was a kind of demonstration of the victory of social order over personal feelings. The ladies around them, seeing new diamonds on their friend, understood everything without words, sympathizing or secretly gloating. Men, on the other hand, used luxury as a way to save face in front of society, demonstrating the financial well-being of their families. In this complex game, gifts were both a shield and a sword. Want to know how mistresses managed to stay in the shadows, even when attending the same theaters as their husbands' wives? In the next chapter, we'll discuss the rules for safe meetings in public places. In the theaters and opera houses of the Age of Splendor, social distance was observed with apothecary precision, but it was there that the most tense moments took place. A wealthy man could sit in a box with his lawful wife, while his mistress was at the other end of the hall. There was a strict code of etiquette that forbade a gentleman from acknowledging a lady of questionable reputation in the presence of his family. Their eyes could meet only for a moment, conveying what could not be expressed in words. In such a situation, the wife had to remain completely impassive, even if she knew exactly who the woman in the bright dress was. Public disregard was the highest form of protecting one's dignity. Meeting places were chosen with particular care to avoid accidental encounters with acquaintances. These could be quiet restaurants and private hotels, private clubs, or carriage rides with drawn curtains. Mistresses were instructed to dress elegantly, but not provocatively, so as not to attract unnecessary attention from onlookers. They learned the art of being inconspicuous while being in full view of the whole city. The men themselves often used alibis in the form of business trips or prolonged meetings in men's clubs. Clubs at that time were the perfect cover, as women were strictly forbidden from entering them. This space of absolute male power made it easy to conceal any movements. Interestingly, some mistresses eventually gained a certain social weight and could even influence the affairs of their patrons. They became confidants with whom politics and finance were discussed, something that was rarely done with wives. In the silence of secret apartments, decisions were made that affected the fate of railways or banks. Such closeness made the relationship even stronger, turning the woman in the shadows into an indispensable partner. However, this did not change her official status as an outcast in the eyes of high society. She remained a secret that everyone knew, but preferred not to discuss over tea. This duality was the basis of society at that time. This is what happens behind closed doors when the masks are finally dropped and the moment of truth arrives. In Victorian society, there was a huge gap between official morality and people's actual behavior. Newspapers could endlessly extol family values, while their owners maintained entire second families on the outskirts of town. This systemic lie permeated all levels of society, creating an atmosphere of constant suspicion and secrecy. Children born of such secret unions became the most innocent victims of this hypocritical system. They grew up often without knowing their true fathers or being forced to hide their origins. For legitimate families, the appearance of illegitimate heirs was the worst nightmare, threatening the division of property. Wives and mistresses often found themselves drawn into a silent competition for influence over the man. The wife possessed his name and status, while the mistress possessed his attention and passion. This created tension that could last for decades, exhausting the strength of all participants in the drama. Men torn between duty and desire often led exhausting lives on two fronts. The financial burden of maintaining two households could undermine even the largest fortunes of the time. Nevertheless, social prestige demanded that this complex structure be maintained at all costs. Any hint of financial difficulties or personal scandal could lead to the collapse of a business reputation. Many women in this situation found their own ways of revenge or self-affirmation. Wives could develop their own platonic or secret attachments, seeking understanding from family friends. Mistresses could manipulate their patrons, demanding more and more material goods for their silence and loyalty. It was a market of feelings, where everything had its price and its expiration date. Society turned into a huge masquerade, where everyone feared that their mask would slip off at the most inopportune moment. The real truth remained locked away in personal diaries, which were often burned after the death of their owners. Do you think true love was possible in such conditions of constant deception? In the next chapter, we will find out what happened when the secret finally came out. When secrets were revealed, the consequences were disastrous for all involved. This usually happened because of a careless letter, the revenge of a resentful servant, or the sudden death of a patron. In an instant, the respectable facade of the mansion collapsed, exposing the family's dirty laundry. The newspapers of the time loved such scandals, relishing the details in the tabloids. For the legal wife, it was a moment of great humiliation when her personal pain became a topic of discussion on every street corner. She had to make a decision: file for divorce and become an outcast, or forgive her husband and bear this stigma for the rest of her life. For the mistress, exposure often meant immediate poverty and the loss of all means of subsistence. The man's family did everything possible to erase her from history and deprive her of access to any resources. Without official protection, she found herself on the street, often with debts and no chance of a decent future. Her reputation was destroyed forever, and even her former friends turned their backs on her. It was a cruel price to pay for years of living in the shadows and luxury that did not rightfully belong to her. Many such women ended their days in obscurity, trying to hide their past under fictitious names. Men also suffered losses in such cases, although less fatal than women. They could lose their seat on the board of directors, membership in a prestigious club, or political career. However, society was often willing to forgive a stray gentleman if he publicly repented or demonstrated a return to family values. Double standards allowed men to restore their position over time, while women remained marked by scandal forever. This unfair balance of power was the basis of the social structure of the Gilded Age. Public exposure served as a lesson to others, forcing them to hide their secrets even deeper. Many stories of secret mistresses and broken marriages remained untold, turning to dust along with their protagonists. The Gilded Age was a master at covering its tracks, and many archives were destroyed by heirs eager to preserve the family name. We can only guess at the scale of this hidden life from chance finds in old mansions. Hidden compartments in furniture, letters sewn into the lining of dresses, and anonymous bank accounts are all that remain of those dramas. These artifacts tell us about a world where human feelings were caught in the vice of social expectations. Each such discovery opens a window into a reality that contemporaries tried to erase. It is interesting to observe how attitudes toward these stories have changed over time. What was once considered shameful is now perceived as a tragic and fascinating part of history. We sympathize with wives locked in loveless marriages and mistresses deprived of rights and a future. These women were hostages of their time, each fighting in her own way for a drop of happiness or security. Their silence and their struggle shaped the moral climate of the era we are studying today. Understanding these hidden mechanisms helps us better appreciate the freedom and rights that women enjoy today. The history of the Gilded Age is not only a story of progress and wealth, but also a story of the invisible victims of this glamour. Behind every grand ball and every successful deal were people with their own weaknesses and sins. Secret mistresses were an integral part of this world, reminding us that human nature is always more complex than any set of rules. They were shadows that made the light of official life even brighter, but also colder. Today, we can only pay tribute to their memory, trying to understand their motives and feelings. By studying the hidden side of Victorian marriages, we begin to understand why this era seems so attractive and frightening to us at the same time. It had everything, from extreme nobility to deep hypocrisy. These stories remind us that external prosperity often comes at the high price of peace of mind. The double life led by many wealthy men was an attempt to reconcile harsh social demands with human needs. However, this attempt almost always led to the suffering of those closest to them. The women of that time showed incredible resilience, surviving in a system that was not designed for them. The legacy of the Gilded Age lives on in our culture, inspiring writers and filmmakers to create dramas about forbidden love. We continue to seek answers to questions about fidelity, honor, and the price of social status. The experience of those years shows that silence and pretense rarely bring true happiness, even if they preserve reputation. The true price of respectability often proved too high for the human heart. We learn from their mistakes, striving to build relationships based on honesty and mutual respect. As we conclude our story, we see that the history of love and betrayal in the Gilded Age is a mirror that reflects eternal human problems. Secret relationships and double lives were only symptoms of a society that feared the truth more than sin itself. Servants, wives, and mistresses all were actors in a grand production where the script was written by tradition and money. We invite you to take another look at the shadows behind the closed doors of Victorian mansions. Ultimately, the Age of Splendor left us a legacy of beautiful architecture and high art. But behind them, there is always a human story. Every detail of the interior, every antique decoration can hold the memory of someone's tears or secret joys. We understand that history is not only dates and battles, but also quiet whispers in the corridors of power and wealth. The lives of women hidden behind respectable marriages deserve to be remembered. Their patience and their fates are an important part of the mosaic of human experience. We hope that this immersion in the past has helped you better understand the complexity of that era. The glitter of gold could not hide the inner emptiness of many unions of that time. However, it was precisely in this struggle between duty and feeling that the strongest characters were born. We see how women learned to manipulate the system in order to survive and protect their loved ones. It was a school of survival in conditions of absolute male domination. Today, we look at these events from the perspective of our time, understanding how far the institution of family and marriage has come. May these stories serve as a reminder of the value of sincerity and the freedom to be oneself. The Gilded Age is a thing of the past, but the questions it posed to people remain relevant. We thank you for joining us on this journey, peering into the most hidden corners of history. May each of us draw our own conclusions from these lessons of the past. This journey through the dark labyrinths of the Gilded Age has come to an end, and we hope it has made you look at familiar historical images in a new light. Which of the stories about the fates of women of that time touched you the most and why? Was it the silent fortitude of wives or the dangerous lives of mistresses in the shadow of someone else's wealth? Tell us in the comments what other secrets of the past you would like to uncover with us in future episodes. Your opinion is very important to us, and we are always happy to hear new ideas for our historical research. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next videos, where we will continue to open the doors to the most mysterious pages of world history.